So this is it, guys. This is Squid 1, the first ever video in the series. And yeah, let me know what you think of it down below. Also, this is probably the longest video that I have ever uploaded, so be prepared. All right, let's do this. The salt spray stung Jimin's eyes as the decrepit freighter slammed against the rusted legs of the Prosperity. An abandoned deep-sea oil rig silhouetted against a bruised twilight sky. Gone were the sterile white corridors of the original Squid Game island. This was a rusting, groaning monument to decay, lashed by a cold, unforgiving sea. The only invitation was a crude neon squid symbol sputtering erratically high above the derelict helipad. 500 souls, shivering and desperate, were herded into the rig's vast central processing chamber. The enormous space was dominated by a huge cylindrical water tower in the center, its upper half submerged below the waves. There was no sign of life until they were inside. Then, through the gaps in the scaffolding, they could see the disturbing outlines of what lay within. The haunting, distorted strains of a children's nursery rhyme echoed from unseen speakers. Above them, high on the catwalk surrounding the central chamber, the crude neon squid flickered back to life. Instead of bunk beds, there were corroded catwalks overlooking deep, empty reservoirs below. One by one, the players walked onto the narrow walkways. Most of them were too scared to speak, but their whispers still managed to weave through the chamber. "What do we do now?" someone called out, his voice shaking. "I don't know," another replied. "Maybe we should leave." A sudden, sharp voice cut through the nervous chatter. "Leave? You think they'd let us leave after what we did?" That was Jimin, her face hidden behind her mask. Her voice was tight with anger and fear. "They won't let any of us leave this place alive. We have to fight." As if to emphasize her point, the ground trembled beneath their feet. From somewhere above them, a heavy thud was followed by a grinding crash. The metal floor buckled. A shower of sparks erupted from a rent in the ceiling. When the light returned, something was dangling where the floor had been. A rusty, oil-streaked chain holding a large iron bucket. Then the giant screen flickered to life. It had been propped up precariously on some barrels. On the screen, the players could see a dark cavern with tall, uneven walls. At the far end, a door loomed with a window of flickering light. Beneath it, a single word was scrawled: "Exit." A moment later, the unmistakable shape of the front-masked man appeared on the screen. His blank face was expressionless. He didn't speak. Instead, he raised a hand. His fingers splayed like a spider's legs. And then he moved them one at a time, spelling out each letter of his message. "Welcome to Squid Game." He paused, then spelled out the rules. "Do not touch the walls or the door. If you do, the exit will close and you will be trapped forever." After a final beat, he spelled out the prize. The winner will receive 38.5 million. Then the signal hand appeared again. The message was gone. The video cut to static. There was a long silence. Finally, someone spoke. "Why are we here? What's the point of this game?" The question hung in the air. No one answered. In the darkness, the front man appeared behind them, a grim silhouette against the emergency lights. "This is your first game," he said, his voice raspy and emotionless. "Its name is Inkwell Immersion." He turned towards the cylindrical tower, its top half submerged below the churning black water. The players stared at it, sensing the danger, unable to look away. "Choose a reservoir," the front man continued. "Stand upon its platform. The water rises. Hold your breath. Last one submerged wins." Panic surged. People scrambled for the metal platforms bolted above each deep pit. Someone slipped on the greasy metal, falling into the inky blackness with a muffled splash. A moment later, the water started to rise, bubbling up from unseen inlets. People screamed, thrashing as the black water climbed higher and higher. Jimin was paralyzed by fear, but she couldn't stay there. She forced herself to move, hobbling towards a platform bolted to the side of the tower. It was near the edge. She didn't want to fall, but staying would mean almost certain death. Below her, the water rose with terrifying speed. Waist deep, chest deep. People screamed, thrashing. Then Jimin saw the first shapes in the darkness. Darker patches, sinuous and swift, brushing against the legs of a man near her. He shrieked, a high-pitched sound of pure terror, and vanished beneath the surface with a violent splash. A slick, gray tentacle, thick as a man's thigh and lined with hooked suckers, flicked out of the water for an instant before disappearing. It wasn't just drowning. They were down there. The water climbed to Jimin's neck. The cold was bone deep. She tilted her head back, gasping for air, her eyes fixed on the rusted ceiling. Suddenly, a tendril as thick as her arm shot out from the darkness and whipped past her face. She flinched, instinctively grabbing at the metal bars of the platform. She had to get out of there, but it was too late. The water was rising fast. It closed over her mouth, her nose. She took one last desperate breath and submerged. In the inky blackness amplified by the water, she heard it, a chorus of wet clicks, scrapes, and low guttural chitters. Bioluminescent dots, sickly green, pulsed in the depths. Tendrils snaked through the gloom. She saw a woman nearby, eyes wide with terror behind her submerged mask, suddenly yanked down by a cluster of writhing arms. Jimin pushed off the platform with the last of her strength, bursting through the surface, coughing black sludge. Round her, the platforms were empty. Only a handful of survivors remained, treading the foul water, their faces masks of primal fear reflected in the dim emergency lights. The water stopped rising. The speakers crackled, "Game over. 87 players eliminated." Panting, Jimin stumbled to the nearest catwalk. Her entire body felt leaden, as if the icy water had seeped into her bones. She peered anxiously over the edge. The murky black water was still, hiding whatever horrors lurked below. She wanted to escape, but where could they go? The derelict oil rig groaned and swayed, buffeted by the relentless wind and rain. Above her, the giant squid symbol flickered erratically. A low, guttural voice echoed across the chamber, sending shivers down her spine. "Attention, players. Your next game will commence shortly. Till then, please make your way to the observation deck. You are not permitted to leave this area." As the remaining players shuffled towards the emergency stairs leading to the rig's observation deck, Kim glanced back at the cylindrical water tower. Its dark opening gaped like a hungry mouth. The nightmare wasn't over yet. In fact, it had only just begun. Now, when the players reached the observation deck, the view before them made them gasp. Stretching out around them was a panorama of churning, storm-tossed sea and bruised twilight sky. But it was what was below them that held their attention. A series of boats, sleek and sinister, had arrived during their game. Their hulls glistened even in the gathering gloom, reflecting the eerie glow of the neon squid. Dozens of masked figures stood on the decks, their blank faces turned towards the oil rig. Among them, Jimin spotted two familiar shapes. The front man and the man in the pink jumpsuit, both watching intently. When the players didn't move, the man in pink spoke. His voice was a distorted, unpleasant rasp. "Are you enjoying the view? Soon you'll have a front row seat." He gestured to the main screen, which had been propped up on a trestle table. "Your next game is being set up right now. Till then, please remain quiet and seated. You'll be called in groups of 6. One by one, the players shuffled forward, their faces drawn and haggard. Each time the screen flashed, a new group of 6 were ushered towards the edge of the platform. Before they disappeared from view, Jimin caught glimpses of their faces, their eyes wide with terror. Their voices echoing across the platform. "What's going on? Where are they taking us? I don't want to go." As the minutes ticked by, the number of players steadily dwindled. Eventually, only Jimin and a young woman named Minyoung remained. They sat huddled together, too afraid to speak. The only sound was the wind and the waves and the distant, unsettling murmur of voices. The girl beside her whispered, "What do you think they're doing to them? Are we next?" Jimin shook her head, unable to answer. After what felt like hours, the pink-masked man approached them. He looked at the two of them, then beckoned to the screen. "It's your turn," he said. The two girls exchanged a terrified glance. Minong grabbed Jimin's arm, her fingers digging into her companion's flesh. "Please," she whispered, "don't let me go." Jimin squeezed her arm reassuringly, though her own heart pounded against her ribs. As the screen flickered on, she saw a single word: tug. Beneath it, two silhouettes, one standing, one kneeling. The pink-masked man gestured to the screen. "The girl who stands wins." As they were led towards the screen, Jamin and Minong stole another glance at each other. Tears streamed down the younger girl's face. She shook her head frantically, her lips moving silently. "I don't want to do this," but there was no escape. The men flanking them were unmoved. They reached the screen. Behind it, the other players waited, their faces hidden in the shadows. Jimin stepped forward. "I'll do it," she said, her voice trembling. Minong cried out, but it was too late. The game had begun. And yeah, that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the first ever episode of Squid. If you want to watch the second episode, you can find it on my channel. Let me know what you think about this down below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.